Court TV, the defense has finished questioning the chemist, juror number 2. Now Steve Slisher, prosecutor, is inquiring. Oh, we have a juror. Our first juror is juror number 2, the chemist, who says he never saw the video, which I thought was odd. He says he had read a little bit about the case and had seen a still frame with some news coverage at the time of the incident, but had never seen the video. The odds of them finding a juror in this pool who lives in Minneapolis who hadn't seen the video, very long odds. So they found one, and he will be sitting on this juror. The first of 14 they have to get through, 12 jurors and then 2 alternates. But the chemist is number 1, and he is on the jury. Let's bring in Lakai Vincent and Vinoo Varghese, who have been watching along with us this fascinating process going on in Hennepin County. Vinoo, he's also visited the site at 38th and Chicago because of this case, yet hadn't seen the video. And what's your take? Is he a stealth juror? Is he prancing out of the courtroom right now? Woo, I got a golden ticket. Or do you think that he was just being honest?
I think if I were the defense attorney, I would not have picked this guy. This guy scares the living daylights out of me. I understand that they were thinking they got somebody with some scientific knowledge who could potentially understand the impact of fentanyl combined with meth, combined with COVID on Derek Chauvin's bloodstream, which they're going to argue is a cause of his death and
George
not
Floyd's.
I'm sorry, George Floyd, Derek, and not Derek Chauvin's knee. I get that. But you've also got a guy, and again, obviously we can't see him, but he's white. He sounds like your classical white liberal who's got a crusade. And as a defense attorney, especially one representing police officers, to me, if you take away the chemist thing, everything this guy says gives you pause. And, you know, exactly what you said, Ted. I mean, who in America or around the world hasn't seen this video? I've got relatives in India, in the villages, who've seen this video, who've asked me about George Floyd and what's going on in America. So that sounds weird. But then when you add the fact that he went to the site, you know, because it was a pivotal moment, but he didn't watch the video, it just seems to me that it's strange. If I were the defense attorney, I would have been challenging him more to see whether this guy, I look at this guy, and I'm like, you know what, I want him out. And try to get him out for cause. And his answers were like contradictory. He's talking about Black Lives Matter. He's a little suspicious, but Blue Lives Matters. You know, there's a bunch of stuff that he could have gone with. And I think the defense, you know, seemingly was enamored with the fact that this guy's a chemist. But this could ultimately be the wrong guy for them. And,
right.
And you know, going back to the original juror with the language issues. It shocks me that she wasn't struck for cause, and that they had to burn a peremptory. I think you've already created an appellate issue. You don't even take a chance on a case like this with a juror who has some sort of language issues. I mean, it's not even a close question. And this is, if Chauvin is convicted, you can go right back to this point and say, look, you know, you put on a juror who couldn't fully understand. We objected and had to burn a peremptory. I think that was a really bad move on the judge's part.
Let's bring in our guests and talk about what we've seen so far in jury selection. Still with us, Lakai Vincent and Vinoo Varghese. We left off last hour talking about this idea that juror number 2 might on paper sound good because he's a scientist for the defense. He might be analytical, but that there's something about him that made both of you sort of pause and think that maybe he is not the best defense juror. He says he never saw the George Floyd video. He also says that when he received the summons, his fiance was there, and he told his fiance that he received a jury summons from a criminal trial, but did not tell her it was the George Floyd trial. That to me was odd, because if I'm the fiance, I'm like, oh, was it Floyd? Was it Floyd? Was it Floyd? And you know, I'm sure he's telling the truth, but that is another one of those, I wonder what's going on. Vinoo, you were talking about the odds of him not seeing the video. Let's set that aside and say, all right, he hasn't seen the video. Does that actually help either side, that they would have a fresh juror, someone who hasn't formed an opinion? Because the video is where you really get your opinion, isn't it?
Well, I actually would be very concerned as a defense lawyer if he hadn't seen the video. I mean, it doesn't compute, right? It's just who hasn't seen this video, as I was saying earlier. But let's assume for a second he hasn't seen the video. Well, then the first time he's going to see it, it's going to be jarring. People have seen it so many times that if you watch it over and over again, you can become numb to it. So that actually may work against the defense on this case for a person who really hasn't seen the video. I am dubious as to some of the things he said, doubtful, I should say, about some of the things he said. It doesn't seem right. And I think he's trying to say the things that will get him on this jury. He sounds to me like someone who wants to get on this jury and potentially blog about it and talk about it. I want to clarify something I said about language issues. I have no problem with accents, and I think the problem that you have when you have defense attorneys who aren't sensitive to cultural issues or differences amongst race is that they're going to mistake somebody who could be a potentially good juror. For example, a lot of Caribbean blacks have strong and positive views of law enforcement and tend to be a little bit more conservative. I had this in a trial 15 plus years ago when I was a prosecutor in Brooklyn, and the defendant was an American black. It was a robbery case. He was a gang member. And the defense attorney, an older white man, was striking every black juror, not understanding that there were differences. So I ended up having a jury of all Caribbean black jurors. It was an entirely black jury filled with all Caribbean jurors, and he ended up, there ended up being a conviction. So my point is that these guys have to know the differences. If she has a real language issue, then that she should be excluded for cause. But if it's just an accent, you got to be able to tell the difference.